Hello everybody and good morning. Welcome to the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. So before we get started, we're going to go ahead and invite some people before we go on to chapter 2. It was kind of funny last night. We were actually talking about how this is one of his earlier books and how he uses a lot more. It's still a lot of his content, but he uses a lot more of other people's stuff, which he usually does, but as he gets further along in his career and with more of the books that he writes, he finds more examples of situations that he's gone through. But right now he's using a lot more of other people's content, which is still really good, but it's kind of cool seeing the transition, like as each book comes out, they just get better and better. And as he says, he's like, you don't have to be perfect in the beginning, but the goal is you need to get better. Oh my word. Okay, there we go. So, we are on Thinking for a Change by John Maxwell. And chapter 2, Realize the Impact of Changing Thinking. You can't stop people from thinking, but you can start them. Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing themselves. And why should you change your thinking? So there's things you need to know about changing your thinking that John wants to go over in this chapter. And number 1 is change thinking is not automatic. You're not going to be able to change. It's just like habits. If you have a couple bad habits, it's really hard to change them at a snap of a finger. But it's being conscious of what you want to do and making sure you're surrounding yourself with the things that you want to change your thinking to. Most common one is things that you see online and things that you read on here. Changing everything to something positive rather than constantly looking at the negative. I personally, other than checking up on family, I really don't spend a lot of time on Facebook unless I'm posting or working on something on there. I really don't like to pay attention to too much content because most people do like to focus on the negative, and I don't want to do that. Or we'll post questions, and actually Jeff is really good at this. He's very good at posting questions to incentivize other people to think on the positive side, or to get people thinking of like, this is another way to look at something. Or I posted something the other day when I read this chapter. I was like, what are the top 5 emojis that you use on your phone each day? And I'm like, post them in the comments. It was a positivity test because I figured out a lot of people who, and I saw somebody else do this, a lot of people who think negatively. If you want to know how you think, look at your top 5 emojis. That might be a millennial thing, but I found that to be true in a couple other examples that I saw online. And I thought that was cool. And I was like, let's try this out on my page. So, I did my hair in my coffee. That was gross.
It's good for you.
Whoops. It's good for my
Flavor.
ends. Anywho, before I made a mess all over myself. Number 2, changing thinking is difficult. So Albert Einstein said thinking is hard work, and that's why if you actually do it, because thinking is so difficult, you want to use anything you can to help you improve that process. It is probably more work to be positive than it is to be negative, because you have to use a different side of your brain. And if you're around people who are constantly negative, if you grew up in a family who's like this, it's hard to do that. But that's why when you start a network marketing business, it's very important that you have to be positive, because you're going to attract who you are, not who you want. So if you want a group of good people on your team, it has to start with you, and then you're going to attract all the people to create that environment that people want to come to. Number 3, thinking is worth the investment. So Napoleon Hill observed, more gold has been mined from the thoughts of man than there has ever been from the earth. So when you take the time to learn how to change your thinking and become a better thinker, you're investing in yourself. Gold mines tap out, stock markets crash, real estate investments can go sour, but the human mind with the ability to think well is like a diamond mine that never runs out, which has helped us in a couple situations, like with everything that just happened right now. There's a ton of people that got bummed out during the lockdown, and they're like, oh, we just can't do anything now. And they focused on all the negative, watched the news, complained, whined, made the excuses. And then there's the other people like, okay, like this sucks, but here's what we need to go do. Like, we could still do something, we just need to do it differently. And your mindset of which one you're going to do makes a huge difference. Number 4, change thinking is the best gift you can give to others. So learning to think better is a great investment for yourself, but it's also the greatest gift for the other people on your team, because people are going to do half of what you're doing, and they're also going to mimic what you're doing. And being that positive person in the room and thinking through things is also going to help other people, because asking those questions and teaching other people to think and ask questions is also going to help them improve as well. And you don't always realize which areas it's going to help them in, because you might be in business with them working in a company, but you might help them in their personal life too with something else, because something you might say may trickle into something else in their life too, which is going to help them. So impacting change thinking. So only when you make the right changes to your thinking do other things begin to turn out right. So one person can't change another person. You are responsible to people, but not for them. As a leader, you can teach the value of change thinking, but how to make those necessary changes and how to make those necessary changes, but people themselves are responsible to make the changes. A lot of times when you're working with people, you can see that they do have the potential to do something, they are just not ready to move yet. But you can still show them the way, and when they're ready, and they say they're ready, then you can walk them through and really hold their hand and walk them through where they need to go. But it takes them actually deciding it for themselves, because there's a lot of times where, like, we've sat down with people and I'm like, oh my God, this person would be great. They can do so good. And I'm like, and they don't see it. And sometimes it's a self-conscious thing. A lot of people are self-conscious, and they're like, but what if I mess up? What is my family going to think? What about this? What about that? And they have to get to the state of mind where they just don't care anymore, and they just want to do it for themselves. Excuse me. All right. So how to change yourself to take responsibility to change your thinking. So step 1, changing your thinking changes your beliefs. I found the more I've learned, the more my beliefs have changed, because with all this extra information, it's changed my perspective on a lot of different things. My thinking is very different from 7 years ago to today. And it's a good thing, because I grew up in a tiny town of only 40 people. My perspective was this big, and now it's this big. Or you can't see me. There we go. So with more information, it's going to happen. But the more and the different questions I ask now make me think differently. So now whenever different things come up or different conversations, my beliefs are very different compared to what they were then. So people will never attain what they can't see themselves doing. That was by Karen Ford. And this was a quote that he had down. So in our pressurized society, people who are out of shape mentally usually fall victim to ideas and systems that are destructive to the human spirit and to the human relationships. They are victimized because they have not been taught how to think, nor have they set themselves to the lifelong pursuit of growth of the mind. Not having a facility of a strong mind, they grow dependent upon thoughts and opinions of others rather than deal with the ideas and issues. Rather than deal with the ideas and issues, they reduce themselves to lives full of rules, regulations, and programs. And that was by Gordon MacDonald. So, change is personal, which is I need to change. Change is possible. I'm able to change. And change is profitable. I'll be rewarded by the change. Step 2, changing beliefs changes your expectations. So a belief is not just an idea that you possess, it's the idea that possesses you. And the first and most important step towards success is the expectation that you're going to succeed. And again, that comes down to self-esteem. Some people, they are like, well, I want to do the bare minimum, but they're setting expectations that are too low. They need to set them higher outside of their comfort zone. And then it's having that right group of people around them who are going to help them go further. Step 3, changing expectations changes your attitude. So our expectations are a huge impact on our attitude. Negative expectations are a quick route to a dead-end thinking, and positive expectations bring a positive attitude. If you're always going to think you're going to fail, you're going to fail. You have to switch over to, this is something I can do. I may not do it very well in the beginning, but I plan on getting better. Number 5, changing your attitude changes your behavior. People with a positive attitude tend to be more energetic, a lot happier, and they tend to get a lot more stuff done at a faster pace. So when you're trying to build a team, that comes in handy, because it's very hard to build at a fast pace when you have a negative mindset and you're constantly thinking about everything that could go wrong, finding the wrong in every person. And it really just sucks up so much mental energy that you really can't focus on anything else. Step 5, changing your behavior changes your performance. So don't ever be too impressed with goal setting. Be impressed with goal getting. Reaching new goals and moving to higher level of performance always requires change, and change feels awkward. But to take comfort in knowledge that change doesn't feel but take comfort in the knowledge that if a change doesn't feel uncomfortable, you're probably not really changing at all. So every time you do a little stretch out just a little bit more, it's going to be uncomfortable. And that's and that's how you know if you're growing too, because a lot of people always stick with what they're comfortable with, not what they actually need to be doing. Step 6, changing performance changes your life. So when you change your performance, that is what you do on a consistent basis, then you have the power to change your life. So the habits that you create are ongoing to mold the person you're going to be tomorrow. The next level. If you want to live a new level, you have to think of a new level and surround yourself with the people that are going to get you to that level. Show me your friends and show me your future. That was by Dan Pena. He's like, there's like a little gnat here. But that was by Dan Pena. He's like, I can show you your future based on the people that you're around. If you're around a bunch of people that don't like to do anything, don't like to just sit around, putz around, mope and whine, he's like, that is where you're going to be. He's like, you need to get around the people that are going to drive you and push you to do better, and the conversations are going to be very different. He's like, you're not going to get, if you're always the number one person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You need to surround yourself with people who are going to make you grow. Now, you need to help your team grow as well, but you need to be spending more time with the people who are the high achievers than the people who are putzing around. All right, and I think that is it of what I have for this chapter, but I always love his books. Every time I go through his stuff, like, it always gets me thinking about different things that I'm doing. What can I change? What are some things that I forgot about that I've read previously? And it's just a really great book. And positive thinking, I feel like this has to be hammered into some people's heads, including my own, because occasionally I find myself, depending on who I'm around, I'll end up slipping back into that. Because that's something that my family does, is it's kind of like look at the negatives of everything. But it's just something that I think always has to be hammered into people, because we always seem to forget. We always talk about positive thinking, but how do we get there? And I think this is going to be a great book for a lot of people to go through. So with that, that's what I have for this chapter. Jeff, do you have any comments?
No, not really. I mean, our notes are almost identical out of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to post these notes inside of the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show, which ties to the school on teaching the basics behind building an organization and being able to recruit. Was on a text message last night till about almost 3 a.m. Somebody who lived on the West Coast, and they put a post on another group that I'm in. Actually, Grant Cardone's group. They had just joined, and they were like, "Okay, I need to build an organization, and I need this many people in this time frame. What do I do?" And I just reached out and connect and said hi, and started a conversation. And the conversation led into this right here, this type of thinking. Positive versus negative. They've had a lot of challenges, a lot of stuff going on in life. So I said, well, let's go ahead and follow up, in a day or so, and see if we can't set a time where we can actually have a conversation and I want to go through, what are they doing? What are they thinking? They're like, well, I've talked to hundreds of people. It's not coming through the right way. I know that I'm not, thinking this through correctly. So we're going to have that conversation, hopefully straighten that stuff out and get them on track, out of California or Texas. I can't remember, but it's different time zone. Anyway, that's it. Today's Friday, so have a great weekend, and on Monday we will be going over chapter 3.
Mm-hmm. And if you guys would like the notes, you could go to the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show Facebook group, and we're going to post those notes right on the wall there, so that way you have them. I do recommend that you read the book, though, but these are just the cliff notes in case you want them, because this is exactly what I just went over. And if you guys want to follow us on YouTube, we're downloading each one of these to YouTube, so that way if you guys would like to go back and rewatch them, you are more than welcome to. So with that, have a good weekend, and we will see you on Monday.